But that video didn't even come in today. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen it, but it's possibly we haven't seen it yet too.
And I mean, there was that message where she says, "I'm not a rag doll. I'm somebody's child." That's a pretty impactful message, to say the least. Now, another really difficult moment that they spent a lot of time questioning about was the 2018 alleged rape, right? So she had testified that Sean Combs raped her, and that there was another time after that they had consensual sex. What was the cross-examination like regarding that alleged rape? Because that is a key alleged moment in this case.
And a moment too, especially in the courtroom, because this was the moment that Alex Fine had to get out of the courtroom, because again, as we've been talking about this kind of a couple of days now, that the defense might possibly call Alex Fine as a witness to impeach his own wife's credibility, something that I think is kind of a very interesting tactic for the defense to kind of take. But, you know, inside the courtroom, Alex Fine isn't listening to this portion of the testimony. He actually just kind of walks out and sits, I guess, outside or in a private room, kind of waiting to get the call to come back in. But as far as the 2018 alleged rape that had happened, the defense was kind of asking Cassie a little bit about why she and Diddy were meeting around this time. And Cassie had said that she was actually no longer with Diddy at this time period. She was actually dating her now husband, that being Alex Fine. So around this time, Cassie had sent a message to Diddy saying, "I love myself more," paraphrasing, because again, a lot of messages going back and forth. She said, "I love myself more. I forgave you." And that she never went away, she being Gina, somebody who has been very much of a talking point throughout Cassie's testimony, because according to Cassie, she being Gina, kind of helped with the dissolve of the relationship, because Cassie had seen a photo of Diddy and Gina together, as Cassie was thinking that at this point the two were monogamous and that Diddy was no longer seeing Gina. So Cassie had sent a message to Diddy saying, "I promised I wouldn't be with you anymore." So around August of 2018, they had a closure conversation, and during this time period, Diddy was trying to get Cassie to go to Burning Man, a big music festival that I guess the two had gone to a number of times throughout the course of their relationship, because I think we have to always kind of put in context that these two were together for a long period of time, a longer relationship than I've ever had in my life, minus my parents, you know, and so 11 years is a long time period. And yes, they were on and off for a lot of periods of time, but it seems like from these messages that Diddy was kind of thinking, maybe we'll get back together, maybe this isn't truly the end or anything like that. So around this time, the defense was kind of bringing up the rape allegations that were made in Cassie's federal lawsuit, which we know was settled the next day, because the defense was trying to say that you had said this happened in August, but in your lawsuit you said this happened in September and not August. You met with prosecutors in 2023 after the lawsuit was filed in New York, and the defense says you told the government that this incident happened in September of 2018, and then the defense says that Diddy was acting strangely, that Cassie had said that Diddy was acting strangely to the government during a 2023 meeting that the two had, that Cassie had with federal prosecutors and federal agents, that she was kind of describing the alleged rape that happened, and said on that night that Diddy was acting pretty strange. The defense says that Cassie had told the government Diddy was kind of acting anxious as well too, something that wasn't necessarily talked about during her testimony when she was recounting the alleged rape. The defense asked Cassie that you told the government that Diddy was bipolar and that he actually wasn't in his right state of mind. And so then we got more text messages, these being from August 21st of 2018. Always paraphrasing, just gotta say, Cassie wrote to Diddy, "Hit me when you can," hit as in like, let me meet up with you. Diddy had responded, "Okay, I'm at an investors conference, you good?" Diddy said, "I'm calling, it's going straight to voicemail." Cassie said, "Thank you." And then Diddy said, "I know I look bad to you." And so I thought that was kind of an interesting point, because maybe it is kind of helping her claims a little bit here that you know, things just weren't necessarily right. And so we saw more text messages from that day where the defense says that Cassie told the government in April of 2025, just last month, that the rape happened in August of 2018. And I think they were trying to point out that you said it happened in August, did it happen in August, did it happen in September? do you hate Diddy? And she said that she even still doesn't hate Diddy in the present time. She still has love for the past. We saw more text messages. This one's from August of 2018. Diddy saying to Cassie, can you call me, please? Cassie saying, I'm so heartbroken. Diddy saying, me too, have a good night. The defense kind of trying to point out if the rape happened in August, why is this texting going back and forth? Or maybe this is verifying that this happened in September. And so then we saw some September text messages where Cassie asked Diddy, how was the yoga treating you? Diddy was apparently sleeping with a yoga instructor. That's kind of what the insinuation was, that he was having an intimate relationship with his yoga instructor. And then Diddy responded, what does yoga have to do with me? Cassie wrote to Diddy, I heard you were dating. Cassie said, who do you think I'm dating? Cassie said, I actually need to stop even caring. And Diddy said, do you even want to start dating? Let's talk about it. We fast forward to just a week later where Diddy said, do what you got to do. Cassie said, well, let's just talk tomorrow. Diddy said, I don't want a combo where you break up with me again. Cassie said, I do love you. I don't want to I don't want to be your girlfriend anymore. Then we kind of get into Alex Fine a little bit, her now husband. And so around this time, this also being in September of 2018, that Diddy found out that Cassie was seeing Alex Fine when the two being Cassie and Diddy were intimate together, because I guess Alex Fine had called Cassie around this time. And it's pretty important to understand a little bit of why Diddy was possibly upset, because around this time Alex Fine was a personal trainer. Diddy actually hired Alex Fine to train Cassie, so that's just another point that the defense always kind of tries to make there. After Cassie had told Diddy that she had a great night with him, the defense asked, if Alex found out about Diddy. And when the alleged rape was talked about, the defense asked, so did your husband punch a wall when he found this out? And Cassie said, the defense was kind of trying to say it as the rape had happened when Alex was calling. Cassie was kind of trying to clarify that that's not the time that this alleged rape had happened. But essentially the defense was like, when Alex had found out that this had happened to his now wife, that he was just so angry that he became violent and punched a wall during this moment. So I think if, Alex Fine is called as a as a defense witness, that this will definitely be a point that they'll talk about during his testimony, if he does take the stand for the defense, because he might have to.
Yeah, it's tough to know about that, if he's actually going to. Probably not. Yeah, what's interesting, Elizabeth? Apparently they were communicating, 2020? Like recently, 3 years before she filed the lawsuit against him? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and according to Cassie, they still communicated after their breakup. So you see more messages, some from March of 2019, but the ones from March of 2020, they were still even communicating. This was the time around COVID. Not sure if maybe that kind of played a part into the two still communicating, but I think it's important to kind of note about here. During 2020, Cassie was already married to Alex Fine. She, I think at this point, was pregnant, maybe with their first child at this point, but Diddy had wrote to Cassie, again, this being in March of 2020, miss my best friend. Cassie responded, miss you too, hope you're taking care of yourself. Diddy responded, again, always paraphrasing here, sending you nothing but love, but the text messages was a lot longer than that. Cassie responded, send my love to them being his children, because they were talking about his kids and how they're doing well and stuff like that. Diddy had wrote back to Cassie saying, you are my ride or die. I thank God for the time that we had together. Again, the defense kind of trying to paint it out that there was love even as recently as just 2020 between the two. And it's interesting because I had noted in my notes, my many of notes, and I'm out on notebook 3 now, that Diddy kept looking at Cassie during this time. He wasn't kind of doing the overanalyzing of playing into his defense. He was kind of looking directly at Cassie. Maybe that was a soft spot for him. Not 100% sure, obviously not in his mind or anything like that. Then Cassie responded a little later from the whole ride or die text, where Cassie said, I took my time to gather my thoughts. The things you said blew my mind. I wouldn't be in this beautiful time without you. The beautiful time being, her family that she now has with her husband. And then they actually asked for a closure meeting around this time. Again, this being 2020. Then Diddy responded to Cassie saying,
Nah, she wanted that nigga back, bro. You could tell, she was just probably saying, gang, I wanted to have a family with you. You didn't give me a family. I'm getting a family now with this dude. And I'm happy for the family. But she always wanted that shit with Diddy, bro.
saying tears of joy. I'm happy you found someone. You deserve the world. You deserve to be loved and respected. Please let me know if you want to have a sit down and talk, and I'll make myself available. And even while Cassie was on the stand today, I think she was kind of insinuating that this is something that she had always wanted to hear. But then if you think about just these dates, Jesse, these were in 2020. Cassie said that around this time she was still kind of doing illegal drugs around this time up until 2022. Then she went to rehab in 2023. And then that's when, she was starting to kind of get these flashbacks and starting to kind of through her trauma therapy and stuff like that, still kind of reprocess everything that she had gone through. I mean, this is somebody that she was with for 11 years. This is somebody that she was with throughout all of her most of her adult life, I should say. And so I think, just putting everything into context, it kind of makes a little sense. Who doesn't break up with someone and then message them, a couple of years ago talking about the good times? Because that's sometimes things that people do. This is a normal reaction. And so for the most part, I think the defense was trying to point out that this essentially, that they ended with love, that Diddy, even after, still cared about Cassie. But for the most part, it seemed like, Cassie still, for the most part, it seemed like Cassie still, again, doesn't necessarily hate Diddy or necessarily possibly wish him harm or anything like that. But I think the defense was trying to just point out that there was still love between the two as recently as a couple years ago.
And that's something the defense is going to have to work with, right? And the jury might be saying, how could she not hate him? How could she stay in contact with him? How could she write messages like, I'm so lost without you, when she's now saying that he sex trafficked her? And it's a very, very complicated analysis that is not going to be resolved with her testimony. I believe we're going to have a mental health expert to discuss this a little bit further as well. We saw flavors of this in other cases too, like Harvey Weinstein. But it's a lot for the defense to work with. That is clear, right? If the idea is to say that this was consensual, that's one hand, versus coercive on the other. Not easy for the jury to match it up here. But one of the things I was wondering whether or not the defense is going to work with this, when she went to therapy or when she went to rehab, there was a discussion about memories. And would I be wrong to say the defense was trying to suggest that, and I've seen this before in other cases, that her memories were being manipulated? So in other words, the defense might make the argument, everything was consensual, yet when she goes to rehab and she gets therapy, her memories of her time with Sean Combs are being manipulated to make her feel like she's a victim of a crime or sex trafficking. Am I totally off with that?
No, not at all. I honestly thought, them talking about her rehab stink was, to me personally, just completely inappropriate. But to your point, Jesse, I could see possibly why they were trying to do that. They were essentially talking about how she was treated for neurofeedback. Her brain was hooked up to a bunch of wires to a machine to kind of regulate her brain and regulate her brain activity. She said this was something that while she was there for 45 days at Lilith Star, or Willow Star, I believe it's called, that she did this treatment about 5 or 6 times during her entire stay. So she said it was essentially about once a week, and she thought that the neurofeedback would essentially help her with her trauma. She also did this MDR treatment, another thing for trauma therapy, which helped her recount her memories. And again, to your point, Jesse, I do think that, a professional expert kind of talking about this and kind of explaining this to the jury about why people kind of do this. It's kind of new age even for myself that this type of machine is even possible. But, if you think about it, especially because we cover so many of these types of cases, right? Not just with the Diddy trial, but all across the U.S., sometimes outside of the U.S. too, that, we all know how sometimes it is, as far as victims go, there is delayed memory. There is delayed disclosure as far as disclosing some of the things that you went through, because when something traumatic happens, who doesn't try to block it out of their memory? Who doesn't try to, try to get their head out of it or not process it the way that it's processed. But it seems like through this time period that she was really just trying to better herself around this time. This was a time where, again, she's already married to Alex Fine. She already has children, but it seems like she was finally like, okay, I'm seeking treatment for myself. And then that this trauma therapy really kind of exploded everything into her recounting just maybe all the things that she had went through that she thought were okay at the time and then realized they weren't.
And then it became a question of what does the prosecution do? There was so much discussion. Well, how's the prosecution going to arguably rehabilitate her testimony, right? The redirect was interesting because at one point she got emotional. You've talked before, Elizabeth, how she was quite calm and cool and composed.
Pretty stoic.
Talk to us about what happened on redirect and also the moment when she actually got emotional.
Yeah, and there were a couple emotional points that she had during her redirect testimony. The government kind of coming back to kind of refocus everything in, where they essentially asked Cassie, about having to do these freak-offs while she was having a UTI, something that may kind of play into the force, fraud, and coercion. Cassie's messaging Diddy saying, I want to see you, but I'm an emotional wreck. I don't want to do it. They brought those messages back. The government asked, did you review every single report from the government, especially when they were, especially when the defense was kind of talking about her recounting when she told the government in something in April or in something in 2023. And Cassie had said she didn't review all those reports from the government or federal agents. The government asked her about the affectionate messages, and that Cassie admitted, that Diddy was kind and loving, but it always just didn't last. Cassie said that when he wasn't happy anymore, that it just affected everyone. That she being Cassie was affected by Diddy's moods. They affected her entire life, her career, her self-worth. And that's when, when she starts talking about just kind of, I think, reflecting on her self-image of herself, especially around that time that she was with Diddy, that she does get super emotional. She said that her work essentially would take a back seat to having to do these freak-offs. The government asking, what all does a freak-off entail? She said physical prep, getting supplies, contacting the escorts. And she essentially said that she hung on to every single word that Diddy had said, because remember, she was, 19 years old, still a teenager when she and Diddy had met. And so she said she was asked about Diddy opening up her world, and she said that it was kind of chaotic. She just essentially wanted approval. And the government asked, well, who do you want to have sex with? And she essentially said, Sean and Sean only, this during their 11-year relationship period. The government brought back the defense exhibit of the 2009 messages. The defense kept bringing up the 2009 messages, but even again, you're thinking of the time frame. It's when Diddy and Cassie were first together, and so of course they're a lot more loving, a lot more nurturing in nature and that sort. And Diddy asked Cassie, you're supposed to be seducing me. And Cassie said she kind of knew what this insinuated, that he just wanted to do a freak off. And so kind of when they were talking about the settlement and the financial situation, that's when she definitely started to get emotional, because during her cross-examination, she was talking about around the time that she had filed her lawsuit, she was actually going to be going on tour and going on tour in like Australia or New Zealand and that sort. And then she said she had canceled the tour, and they were essentially saying, oh, you canceled the tour because you got the financial payout. You didn't need to go on the tour anymore because your finances were already fixed. And then she said, no, she actually canceled the tour because she was overwhelmed after filing her civil claim. Again, that was settled a day after. She said that she was addressing the past and just didn't want to be away from her kids.
This is kind of rehashing some of the same shit.
The government
we kind of
asked,
know this already.
would you give all that money back if you never had to do a freak off? And that's when she started really getting emotional. She said that she just wanted agency and autonomy, because again, who wouldn't? I mean, it's your body, it's your choice. And then that the government was kind of honing in on the fact that Diddy was the one who initiated these freak offs, whether or not she was on her UTI, whether or not he was beating her during these sessions. She said that she didn't matter to Diddy, that she kind of felt like nothing. And she said that she admitted, yes, she was open at the beginning, but then that kind of changed over time. And I think that also kind of plays into the whole consent issue. She said that once she was done with Sean Combs, that she didn't do any more freak offs. And then she said that she had told Sean more than once that she didn't want to do these freak offs. She said that she had worried for her safety, for her career, and worried that he just didn't want to be with her anymore. And I think that's why she kind of kept doing this, essentially just to make him happy, something that she had been very forthcoming about. But I also think, there were points that the government really kind of honed in on the fact that this might play into, count 2 of the forced fraud and coercion of sex trafficking, where she was doing these things. She didn't want to be doing these things. She told her partner she didn't want to be doing these things. And yet, according to Cassie, this just became like a job for her. She felt like a sex worker, but that part got struck from the record.
And talking finances, by the way, it also came out that she got a settlement from the Intercontinental Hotel. I don't believe we knew about that.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised that the defense attorneys didn't bring this up during their cross-examination during the first time. They actually brought it up during recross. Now, there's been a lot.
By the way, I think I found the video of it looked like Diddy was it looks like Diddy was in rehab at this time. Yeah, Diddy was in rehab during this time, I believe. Hold on. Oh, I did sound good. So remember those videos that they talked about Diddy in rehab? These are
Diddy view. Life is a journey. One step at a time, baby. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Also, you got to enjoy it. Take time to slow down and look at the beauty of it. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Diddy view, I'm running now.
I don't know if he was training for a marathon, but I think this was like part of like rehab. Here's another video.
The things I cannot change. Courage to change the things that I can. And the wisdom to know the difference. May God bless you all. Have a beautiful day. Stay positive, stay bright, and shine on, baby. Shine on.
And then this is the last one. Oh, this is the pictures. I got to go get my dogs. They keep barking. Hold up.
A lot of rumors and speculation, especially even prior to trial beginning, about how much Cassie received from Diddy in that settlement payout just for her federal lawsuit, right? So I think it was very much a moment where a lot of us were just like, whoa, she got a settlement also from the Intercontinental Hotel. And again, this was something that the defense, Ana Maria Estevao, brought up literally right before she got off the witness stand, where she was asked, did you get a settlement from Intercontinental Hotel? Because she was asked, do you have any more pending lawsuits or any more demands that you had made out for money? And Cassie said that they did reach settlement negotiations very recently. She said about either last week or last month or so, and it was for $10 million. And I think what the defense was trying to do, again, kind of painted out that she was just the reason for her wanting to do this was essentially for money or financial reasons. And I'm not sure how much of a sticking point that really was for jurors, but I was, again, kind of surprised that they didn't bring this up during the cross-examination. But maybe it was a point that this could be something that the jury just kind of left with, left with that impression of Cassie once she got off the witness stand.
I have a feeling that if the judge didn't impose the order that she had to finish up her testimony by the end of the week, this testimony would have gone well into Monday. But the judge wanted to make sure, she's pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
1 week down, make sure she leaves the stand, because there was so much more to get into. Now, she apparently was not the only witness who took the stand. There were 2 more witnesses who took the stand today. I got to talk about first this special agent. Who is this special agent? What did we learn from this special agent?
Oh, we learned a lot, Jesse, from Special Agent Yazine Binda from Homeland Security Investigation. She was questioned by AUSA Madison Smizer. At first, when she had taken the witness stand, I was kind of like, I'm wondering what she's going to testify, what she's going to talk about. She's coming after a very critical witness, and this special agent had a lot of very critical information. And so she was essentially somebody who had handled the arrest logistics of Diddy. The arrest happened just in this past September. And so we got a kind of inside look into what all was in the Park Hyatt Hotel right here in Manhattan. And so we saw a lot of exhibits, and a lot of notable exhibits, I will say that. And so the warrant was executed around 11:30 p.m. that day, and this happened on September 16th of 2024, a notable date. That's the date that Diddy got arrested. And so her role was essentially to be a photographer. So she photographed the entire hotel room. So we saw a bunch of exhibits. We saw exhibits of the room layout where you can see a bed, a TV window, a desk, a hallway closet. You saw a closer image of the bedroom and the bathroom closet. You saw the hallway closet. You saw a bag at the bottom of a closet. You saw a hard drive. You saw, more interesting, a Ziploc bag of, you may guess it, Jesse, baby oil and Astroglide, something that a lot of us were just like, whoa, because this is coming right after Cassie's testimony. Diddy's defense team is trying to paint him out as somebody who just kind of left the freak offs behind, left the drugs behind. But then you're seeing that as recently as just this past September, he had a bag full of baby oil, 5 bottles of it found in the bathtub, Astroglide in the lube in the bathtub. Then you see a nightstand. It had a Louis Vuitton bag, a Louis Vuitton med bag, something that Cassie had talked about during her testimony. And I think the government really did a great job in kind of presenting this after Cassie's testimony, because I think once we saw the baby oil, we were just like, whoa, because again, this was very recently. And so we saw clonazepam given to an alias, Frank Black, somebody that Cassie had talked about while she was on the witness stand. It was one of the aliases that Diddy had used when he was booking hotel rooms or getting escorts and that sort. What is clonazepam? I believe it's an ED medication. Then we see lube in the drawer of a nightstand. More baby oil is found. You see a nightstand with a red iPhone. That iPhone was seized as well as a phone that was on Christina Corum's person, another phone from the hotel, and the hard drive. You see a bottle of medications in that in these exhibits. You see a lighting device in the living room, and the special agent was describing it as mood lighting. Again, Cassie says during these freak-offs that the lights and the directions, this kind of played into it. So then you start to see a pink baggie. And it was interesting because the government said that this pink bag tested positive for MDMA and ketamine. And I think because it was in a pink bag, we kind of know that it possibly another thing, it's called pink cocaine. And so then they passed around this medicine bottle with the pink baggies around to the jury. And I will say, this is what I did see from the jurors, is a lot of them really overanalyzing it. A lot of them kind of looking into it, seeing what these little pink baggies are and stuff like that. Then you see a black fanny pack in one of the exhibits. And according to the special agent, that black fanny pack had $9,000 of cash in it. To me, I thought that was like, whoa, because again, if you're trying to paint it to be like that this was just a thing that they had done so long ago or anything like that, but this was as recently as just September 16th of last year, it was a lot kind of going on. So I was wondering how the cross-examination would go about this, especially because this seems really kind of damning in my opinion, because I think even when the baby oil was shown, a lot of people were just like, and I think, I couldn't see Diddy's face directly or anything like that when it was shown, but it was just kind of like, where's the defense going to kind of take this? And so what the defense did was essentially kind of harp on that this warrant talked about seized cash and bulk cash, and that wondering why the cash was taken and stuff like that. But I think that, given that these are federal agents who made this search, like really what other kind of questions could they ask to kind of poke holes in things beyond just, why did you guys seize the cash? Why did you seize the $9,000? And so I thought Special Agent Binda's testimony today was very compelling, and it very kind of verified a lot of Cassie's claims, especially when it comes to like habits that Diddy had, like keeping medicine in a Louis Vuitton bag, something that he had still did even while he was with Cassie. The baby oil, I know a lot of people talk about the baby oil, but the fact that there were so many bottles of baby oil in this hotel room that didn't look the biggest or anything like that from the pictures that we saw, but who knows, it might have been a humongous suite, but again, you know how photographs go. But I thought Special Agent Binda's testimony was very much like, whoa, okay. After they got Cassie off the stand, I see where the government did an excellent job of kind of making those connections there.
It looks like, I think a fair argument could be, even after all this time, right before his arrest, he might have been about to engage in a freak-off. And so if you have the bottle, the baby oil, you got cash, freak-off, you know, transportation to engage in prostitution, it just corroborates a lot of what was said. So I can understand why that's an important witness.
Pattern.
And now we move on to the final witness of the day, who definitely did not finish her testimony today, will be back next week. So that now brings us to Dawn Richard. This is somebody that we thought was going to be the next witness. Huge witness. This is somebody who had filed their own lawsuit against Sean Combs, former member of Diddys Kane. Took the stand in what, the last 15, 20 minutes of the day? Talk to us about what she testified to so far.
I'm pretty surprised that the government even called Dawn Richard to the stand today, because we were so close to the 5 p.m. deadline of court being done for the day, the jury going home, especially to enjoy their weekend after just a long week of testimony. But she was called to the stand as the third witness of the day, the first being Cassie, of course, the second one being Special Agent Binda, and then now Dawn Richard taking the stand. She walked into the courtroom. From what I could see of her, didn't pay any type of attention to Diddy or anything like that. Similar to Cassie, just made a direct line straight to the witness stand. But what I will know, Jesse, about kind of seeing Dawn Richard and just her tone, she didn't seem like she really wanted to be there. She seemed very uncomfortable, and I can only imagine why. This was someone that she had a professional relationship and even possibly a friendship with for a number of years. She had worked with him on her music for a number of years. He had first discovered her when she was auditioning for making the band. She made the band, that band being obviously Diddys Kane, and then still continued to work with Diddy for a number of years, even after Diddys Kane disbanded, and even after Dirty Money disbanded as well too, another group that Dawn Richard was in with Diddy, as well as another performer named Kalina Harper. And so as far as just the 20 minutes of the testimony that we got today, we kind of started out with those foundational questions, right? How old is she? She being 42 years old. She's from New Orleans. She was very soft-spoken on the witness stand. There was a moment where she did have to identify Sean Combs, aka Diddy. She did kind of point over to him, and what I saw from Diddy was something kind of interesting, where he did this with his hands, where he kind of just raised his hands up at the stand. I don't know if it was like to do a wave or just to, I don't know what it was, but it was just a very interesting moment that he had did, and nothing that was called out afterwards about it. But she was asked just about her relationship with Cassie, how often that she saw Cassie and maybe Diddy together, and she actually said she saw them all the time. So this was around the 2009 period, and the 2009 incident was definitely brought up, something that she had spoken about or alleged that happened in her civil claim against Diddy as well too. It was an incident where she had said that Cassie was attacked by Diddy. He had come down the stairs, he was screaming, and essentially beat her in front of Dawn Richard as well as the other band member, Kalina Harper, and because he was demanding Cassie to get him food. And she said that she had seen Diddy frequently beat Cassie, but this particular incident was something that the defense was very much kind of a little bit agitated about, and I'll get to that point in just a second. But at this point, Cassie was cooking Diddy breakfast. Diddy comes down from the top level of his home, and Diddy, according to Dawn Richard's testimony, says, "Where the F is my eggs?" And then Diddy allegedly took this pan, this skillet, and attempted to hit Cassie in the head with it. Cassie, according to Dawn Richard's testimony, gets into a fetal position. She hides her head, and she said Cassie didn't fight back during this incident. She just fell to the ground. She said she saw Diddy punch and grab Cassie's head, drag her up by the head up to the upstairs, and then the next thing you know, she's hearing glass breaking and yelling. And then she said that she was, and this is a point why I do feel like she was a little kind of maybe upset with herself about, or just kind of embarrassed to say out loud, where she said that she was scared to do anything, meaning that she didn't intervene in this situation. She didn't call the cops, and she said that when this happened in 2009,
How am I so consistent in doing this, bro? I was reading donations. I got to start again. Fuck. Scott Darkhead, thank you for the 2, bro. He says, yo, Act, did you get some cutty last night, bro? Listen, man, it's my birthday. Kane Gainus, thank you for the 5. He says, Act, happy pre-birthday, my G. But you got to cover this 20v1 that's going on with Joey. I think he's talking about Joey Badass holding down the whole East Coast right now. Okay, my brother. Scott Darkhead, thank you for the 5. He says, truck driver here. I'm going to need you at least until 2 a.m. No Diddy, brother. Glad you had a good show. Wish I could have went. I passed through Jersey, actually, last night. Yeah, the show was in New York, but I appreciate you nonetheless. Maurice Lombardo, thank you for the 5. It says, Ack, the birthday party was lit as a motherfucker. Big Ack. I'm going to always pop out for the chat, and I appreciate sharing the moment with you. I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up. PT Bullet Boy Gaming, he sent in 5 gifted Academy memberships. And Stakey Irwing, thank you for the 5. He says, yo, shout out from Ireland, Ack. You're making it easy for me to keep up with the rap scene. It's 12 a.m. here. I got no work tomorrow. Low Mo Rookin, he says, I can't buy a membership here when I'm on the iPhone. Yeah, I think you got to be on a desktop. Then you should see the button that says join. Views from the old school, he sent in 2 donations. One just had a emotion. The other one that says, Blessed Earthstrong from Switzerland. Big Greg, thank you for becoming a new member. Mish MG, he said, the future of intercourse ain't looking too good, man. Diddy done raised the bar too damn high. Now all we're going to have to do, we're going to have to backflip into the pussy at this point. Ice Lagoon, thank you for the 5. He said, yo, Diddy should have been tried for killing Pac, not for being freaky with Cassie. 2 Tycoon 6, thank you for the gifted membership, and also he gifted again. Low Life Braid, man, thank you for the donation. It says, your coconut flavored Ciroc needs to be pulled from the shelves. Niggas be having milky mustache after drinking. Is crazy work. Oh, shit. Speaker says, Diddy could probably have a mean right hook if he out here whacking for 9 hours at a time. Oh, shit, I never thought about that. That Diddy was probably jerking off for 9 hours at a time. I'm surprised he didn't catch like a heart attack. Speaker says, yo, Cassie wanted to be subbed into Game 7 of the Free Call Finals. Ruger Red, thank you for the multiple gifted memberships. And PG Lottery, thank you for the 10. It says, yo, these Latina women are crazy. This is nothing but a typical Bronx love story. Geese Almighty says, yo, Ack, you're more baffled about the baby world than about the ex. Nah, I'm baffled about the semen. Like, the mere fact that you would rub another man's semen on your nipple is diabolical. Jesus Christ. Chris Black, thank you for the 5. He says, love the consistency and happy birthday. I guess that one city girl wasn't capping when she said she loved getting peed on. Yeah, I don't know why she even took that back. I thought she was all about honesty and truth. Right? 3 Digless. She says the reporter said the baby oil was laced with date rape drug, GHB. And he said the chat is like, so where's the crime? I guess you're saying that the chat, no matter what they see, they're still not going to believe that Diddy's guilty. Low Life Braid says, man, we used to wrestle over that goddamn Frosted Flakes. Scripps Haman, thank you for the 15. I think that's Australian money. I don't know what that is. So happy birthday, Unc. Been following you from the start. Am I Unc now? Maybe I'm Unc. Chloe Parker says, yo, Dapper Dan from Harlem grew up with Diddy parents and said it didn't start with Diddy. He has a good video commenting on it. Context to why Diddy's like this. Let's kind of, again, Dapper Dan. Let me see. Is it this?
So the question is, what do you think about the whole Puff Daddy situation that's going on right now?
Okay. I want you to listen to this carefully. I grew up with Puff Daddy's parents. Yeah. So, we all come from home, born here, raised here. No matter what happens in the culture, it didn't just start. No matter what happens in the culture, it didn't just start. A lot of things that you see happen came about from not even from my generation, but the generation that became before me. It's just that. A lot of the things that's happening today, because of social media, everybody gets to know about it. But here's what I want to leave you with. I'm Mentor ASAP Ferg, right? And on his new album that's coming out, I'm addressing exactly what happened. So that's all I can tell you for now. But when it drops, it's gonna drop like
Hey, have y'all seen this? They're now using AI to reconstruct what's going on in court. Check this out. Look.
Courtroom are you and him. At a time when everything in government can feel so uncertain, one thing has remained the same in our justice system, and that is standing between all of us and a criminal conviction.
So this is defense opening statement. They've now turned into AI because they got the full transcript, not just tweets.
Jury of our peers. That is you. You will hear the evidence. You will get to the truth. You will see the witnesses and evaluate them one by one. And finally, the story about this case can finally come out. Why do I say that? Well, I say that because this case is not about what you've heard on the news, read in the news, or have seen on social media for the past year and a half. This case is not about what civil attorneys looking for a payday are trying to make my client out to be. There has been a tremendous amount of noise around this case for the past year, and it is time to cancel that noise and hear and see the evidence that will be presented in this courtroom, and it will be crystal clear. The story of Sean Combs is a fascinating one, but it is a human one. We are going to tell you his story over the next 2 months in this courtroom, and you will learn that he is a man who grew up here in New York City in Harlem, who came from little but built groundbreaking, lawful businesses. You will hear that he is a wealthy individual, but know that the evidence will show that nobody gave him his money. He worked for it, and no one gave him a dime. It will show that he made every single dollar, recreated a culture, and produced music that
This is how Diddy look in court?
I believe you will hear will change the generation. And I believe that the evidence is
And let's get a little bit into it.
testimony. Ask yourself, what is causing that fight? The answer is, without exception, jealousy or drugs. The hitting, the things we are going to take responsibility for. It is typically because of jealousy or drug use. The role of jealousy here is critical, and it's pervasive. The evidence will show you that over the course of the 20 years we will examine in this courtroom, we'll see the same women over and over. They remained in multi-year relationships with him, and I believe that you'll pretty much know about every relationship he's had over the past 20 years. Again, that's whether this is an employee or a girlfriend. You will pretty for everyone to hear he said, she was my soulmate. The end of the relationship between Cassie and Combs is important, and I want you to focus on the evidence of how and why it ended. When Combs
Why is her eyes so big?
publicly said Kim Porter was his soulmate to all the people around him who were there, for the first time maybe ever, Cassie realized all the things she would not be. I expect many witnesses at this trial to tell you she wanted to be Combs' wife. I expect she may even tell you that. That is what she spent 11 years trying to get, and in one day it became clear to Cassie she was never going to get that. And if she was never going to be Combs' wife, if she was never going to be the love of his life, then she would leave. And that is what she did on her terms, her choice, for reasons that, for her, were the right reasons. This is where bringing personal experience to this jury matters. This is something we have all been through. That one life event you can point to where you can say, that is when I knew it was over. Because that is what this was for her. Because this was a relationship, although toxic at times, like every other relationship, it was not based on coercion. It was not based on force. At a certain point, you know you're not going to get what you need from the other person, and you leave.
All right, enough of this AI bullshit, man. All right, okay. Did I read all the donations? Let me make sure I read all of it. Low Life Bird says, "Act, man, could you stop touching the goddamn mute button?" I'm Savvy Mike 96 says, "Yo, Cat playing like a lion tonight." Yeah, I think the Knicks got it, bro. The Knicks up 30. Thank you, Savvy. Z says, "Act, look at Diddy interview on Ellen after the freak off." Diddy did an interview with Ellen? Speaker says, "Yo, Act, the mutant is fucking ridiculous, man. You got to fix it, fam." And B. Greer says, "Biggie was Frank White. Puff is a real sicko."
Hello, Sean Diddy Combs. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you. Do you like being scared? I'm not going to scare you.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, I know. I'm not going to do it. I have to thank you because the last time you were here, you turned me on to Twitter. I knew nothing about Twitter,
Yes.
and now it is so much fun. I'm playing so many games,
Yes.
and I get to give things away and help people out.
Yeah, you get to connect to the people. You get to make sure that they know that you care about them, and it's also you get to hear how they feeling about certain situations, and you get the news quicker than the news gives it to you.
Yeah, no, it's great. So tell me about your birthday party. Am I invited?
Yes. Yes, you're definitely invited. I invite you to all my parties. You just haven't seemed to show up to
No,
any
well,
of them.
is it on the East Coast?
Yes.
Well, that's why. Why don't you have one here on the West Coast? Because I work all the time.
Okay, well, maybe I have one at your house.
Where's that? Now, what time would your party start, let's say?
Like 9:30.
Really? That early?
Yeah.
I could make that.
Yeah.
But I think of you of starting a party at like midnight. Like, what time will it go till?
That's a different type of party, though.
Uh-huh.
Oh, shit.
It'll go from like 9:30 to like maybe 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then, we have the top 2 floors of the hotel.
And then it will carry on there?
Yeah. Then no, I mean the after party.
No, I know about them. I'll listen to the music. I've heard that song, After Party. But that was at the Holiday Inn, I think. All right, so, and how old are your kids now? How many kids you have?
I have 6.
6, and how old are they now? Well, you seem,
I mean,
you seem youthful. That's why they're
I'm
like,
youthful.
oh, yeah.
And I'm fertile.
So, and your twins are here, right?
Yeah, the twins are here. They're in the back.
They're 3 years old. Is that right?
No, they're going to be 3.
They're going to be 3.
Yes.
Little girls.
Yes, little girls. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going to be 3 in December.
Are they spoiled rotten?
Yep.
Are you strict? Do you let, because obviously you can give them anything they want. Do you make them realize?
All right. What?
All right. And now the vodka line.
Yeah.
How many more things? Well, last time you were here, you had the vodka, so that's not a new thing. It's doing very well, right?
Yes, it's doing very well. Ciroc vodka is up like 1,000%.
She knew about his parties and never actually said nothing. I mean, I kind of think there is some actual truth to this whole childhood trauma shit. Diddy, childhood trauma.
And past that he's revealed him as a person and how he became who he is today, which shaped him. About how he was sent out by his grandma to go get cigarettes. She would give him some money to go to the corner store. He got beat up one time, didn't come back with, or the money was taken from him, I should say. He comes back without the money.
That's Sean Sotero. He does a good job of like doing some documentary stuff.
And his mom.
Give me 1 second. Oh, what the fuck?
Documentary, Sean Combs, Portrait in Black and White. Combs revealed a lot about his upbringing. Some of that could tell us a lot about who he is today. I want to bring in Sean Sotero. He's a music journalist who covers rap and hip hop to discuss Sean Combs' upbringing. So, Sean, thanks for coming on. I want to talk a little bit about something that Sean Combs brings up in this documentary. And he talks about the differences in which his grandmother treated him and his mother. And he tells this story about how he was sent out by his grandma to go get cigarettes. She would give him some money to go to the corner store. He got beat up one time, didn't come back with, or the money was taken from him, I should say. He comes back without the money, and his mom was like, you go back and you get that money or you don't come back. You know, and he left the house crying. His grandma would have let him stay at the house, but his mom told him to get out there. And he used this quote that I thought was really interesting. He says, my mother, I guess, was raising me for the real world. She always told me if someone hits me to hit them back harder. And he talked about getting into this big fight with the guy, but getting the money back and going home. What does that tell us about how Sean Combs kind of developed? You know, hit him back harder if you get hit.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to draw conclusions from a single anecdote, right? But I think it tells us a lot about how he wants to be seen, right? Of all the things he could have potentially said about his childhood, you know, there are plenty of funny, colorful anecdotes, right? He played football in high school with a member of the Gambino family. So like, you know, there's plenty of, you know, funny, interesting things he could have said about his time growing up. I think it's notable that he chose that story, you know, to present himself as a fighter, as someone who overcomes obstacles, and to, you know, sort of show, you know, the influence his mom had and ways in which maybe, like you said, she tried to prepare him for, you know, difficulties he might experience. I think it's when you're on top, as he was for so many years, you know, it's very difficult to portray yourself as an underdog anymore, right? And to gain appreciation and sympathy for that. And I guess maybe one way to do it is to say, you know, is to sort of call back to obstacles you had as a child.
Another thing that he discussed was his father. And he didn't really know his father. He describes the only thing he really remembers about his father, because his father died right as he was turning 3, was his dad throwing him up in the air. You know, a lot of parents do that. You know, you throw the little kid up in the air. And he said that's his memory. Doesn't even remember the sound of his father's voice. And he says he knows that he was, quote, a very stylish dresser. The ladies loved him. His whole everything is real meticulous. He had a lot of drive, a lot of determination. You know, he ain't want to be poor. And Sean Combs said that his mother had actually told him his father died in a car crash, but that wasn't really true. He later found out when he did some research later in life that his father was shot to death, shot in the head. He said his brains were blown out. Those were his words, on Central Park West in Manhattan. And he said his research confirmed that his father was a hustler and a gangster. So he was the son of a hustler and a gangster, something that he had long suspected. And his dad ran around with Frank Lucas. Frank Lucas was a big drug dealer in the area, and he knew his dad. I mean, Frank Lucas has been on YouTube talking about this, about knowing Melvin Combs. So how do you think maybe that influenced Sean Combs?
Right. I mean, the Melvin Combs story is very interesting. I found something actually just the other day. It's a daily news story from February 1973, which is a few years, maybe a year and a half or so after he was killed. But it was around the time that this drug case in which he had been involved, in which, finally convictions happened in it. But this article says, well, look, this case, which was, breaking up a giant heroin ring, started when Melvin Combs's phone was wiretapped. And that was sort of the break in this case. And the article doesn't out and out say this, but it seems to imply that Melvin Combs' death was somehow connected to that, right? And you hear rumors, people associated with Harlem in that time have said, well, look, people mistakenly thought Melvin Combs was an informant and that's why he was killed, right? It's sort of something that people who knew him back then or who knew the area back then have said. And so, it seems to me this article sort of trying to put two and two together and say maybe the reason they thought that was because there was, in fact, this wiretap on his phone. So that part was true, but obviously wiretaps are not something one does voluntarily, right? So if this daily news article is to be believed, I think that maybe sort of explains the story behind his death, possibly. But yeah, I think, Diddy definitely had the image of his father was very important to him. There was a speech he gave at Howard, maybe 2005 or so, something like that, where he recalls very vividly, I was in college at Howard and the first thing I did was go to the library and look at the microfiche and look up the Amsterdam News and see this story about my father. Like, it is something that is.
I do think this nigga has some trauma, like he has some sexual trauma. I don't know who touched him though.
Drug dealer, but not just a drug dealer, sort of this suave, powerful guy.
Sorry school at one point in time. Wall Street Journal said, "Every time I had sex, I wasn't scared if than what she had."
Absolutely. And Mount Vernon is very important to Puffy's story. Certainly Harlem is, and he talks about and tries to represent Harlem a lot, but Mount Vernon is equally important. His first big break in the record business, he started promoting parties in college and things like that, but his first real break in the music industry began when he was an intern at Uptown Records, which is a job he initially got through a connection from Heavy D, who was, of course, from Mount Vernon, right? So there is a Mount Vernon connection from the very beginning of his story in the music business.
I want to move on now to something he's asked about sex and love in this documentary. And he talks very descriptively about losing his virginity at the age of 12 and actually feeling like he was pretty good at sex at the age of 12. He talks about watching something called Midnight Blue, which he described as a pornographic channel that was on TV at the time. And I want to read a quote. He said, "The first time I had sex, I wasn't scared. It felt so good to me, but I just remember how impressed I was because I used to watch Midnight Blue and how I felt I was just as good as the porno stars."
So the Diddy and Cassie situation has been getting freakier and freakier by the day. The more and more I hear about these allegations, Diddy is a freaky man, the king of the freak-offs. And Cassie, you feel me? She was young, vulnerable. But like what Ak said, she could have left. Like, Diddy was not holding her well. This is what's hard for me. allegedly Diddy wasn't holding her hostage, but she said on the video that came out in the hotel where he hit her over and drug her back, she was trying to leave one of the freak offs. And Diddy said, "Oh no, you're not gonna leave the freak offs. You got it. Yeah. Wait till the dude bust a nut, allegedly, then all over you, then scrape it off, go in the other room and rub it on my nipples." That's what he wanted. It sounds so crazy to say, but that's what Diddy wanted. Like, we seen him in the robe. I thought he was just fresh out the shower, but allegedly he was probably butt naked. I'm surprised there was no baby oil on her or him, or she wiped it off. That's why he was so mad. It was no baby oil on. Hey man, I genuinely feel bad for Cassie. I feel bad for her husband too, because he has to be in court and he's listening to all these things. And I don't really think Cassie's lying about anything. Like, Cassie just seems like a nice girl, probably like gentle, innocent, like, and she just wanted a career. Like, man, I'm struggling here because I want to be very, very honest about everything, like my point of view. I don't think Diddy was the best of best people, and I think everything he did to Cassie was wrong, and it was definitely manipulative and all that stuff. But like, is it sex trafficking though? Like, this is what he's charged for. Like, domestic violence, yes. Assault, yes. Like, probably a bunch of other crazy stuff, yes. But sex trafficking, bro, I don't know if you could say he was sex trafficking. But it's only day 2 of the trial. And I'm gonna be very, very unbiased about every single thing I say. It's day 2 of the trial. Diddy is he's there every day. They say that he's looking white as hell, he's gray as hell. He's, you feel me? They said he was looking at Cassie the whole time. But day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe 2 weeks later, there might be someone else taking the stand, and we don't know how that's gonna go. Maybe like 3 days later, there's gonna be a new person taking the stand, and they just expose everything about Diddy. Like, we don't know fully everything Diddy's done yet. Like, there might have been men that he was having freak offs with. Like, ain't gonna lie, bro. Like, Act was the line about what he said. Diddy should just came out and said that he was a flexible, bro. He should just said he was bisexual, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie. And what Act said, bro, all these rappers gotta come out who was around Diddy, like really, really hung around Diddy and was like really cool with him. They need to come out and like, yeah, yeah, bro. You gotta defend yourself, your integrity. You feel me? But your boy Big Act News. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And do you feel like Diddy's innocent, or do you feel like he's guilty? And we're talking about sex trafficking. Like, we're not talking about is he a good person or not. Do you think he's guilty of sex trafficking, Cassie? It's your boy Big Act News, and I'm out.